My thoughts and feelings on this game are a bit complicated. On one hand, this game shows so much promise and is actually pretty fun, but on the other hand, it falls flat just short of being a really good experience. I played through this game in a single sitting, so any complaints about the length are just null and void, at least compared to 13. It's actually the polar opposite experience in my case. The length for 13 was far longer than it should have been, but this game was far shorter than I feel like it could have been. There are mechanics in this one that are shockingly polished compared to some of the other third-person shooters I played on this console generation, but unfortunately you'll find yourself longing to have an excuse to use them. For example, there's a light, and I mean very light, stealth mechanic that I wish they could have expanded on even just a little. You'll mostly just find yourself crouching to avoid gunshots under obstacles or behind cover. On the other hand, though, they have a lean mechanic that is practically essential to playing this game to its fullest extent. Just like the game as a whole, you'll flip-flop between good and bad things pretty frequently. The plot to this game is mildly interesting. You find yourself at the beginning of a deal gone wrong, or at least that's what you're led to believe. You learn as the game goes on that you were set up for failure by one of your closest friends, and after a few levels playing as one of the game's main characters, you end up getting arrested and is forced to serve time. Then, during your time imprisoned, you play as another character to show some things that have happened behind the scenes, and really just a middling set of levels that aren't really that great to play through, just to pass the time for the time skip. After the skip, you find yourself in a jailbreak, and now that you have all the information that was hidden from you from the jump, uh, it's time for revenge. I remember the last few missions really ramp up in difficulty, and the last mission in particular is rather a huge jump in difficulty. And the ending is kind of just cut and dry, to be honest. On to other aspects of the game. The artwork and art direction for this game is of pretty standard fare for this console generation. There's nothing really of note here that I can point at and be like, hey, this is actually pretty good. However, as much as I would have loved to involve the music for this video, the soundtrack for this game is almost entirely composed of licensed music by prominent artists around the time, like Ghostface Killah, DMX, Tech Nine, Tupac, etc. The music plays while you're gunning down enemies, so it's sort of like a radio, like GTA, but playing at all times. Aside from that, the level design is actually pretty intuitive and doesn't require much hand-holding, which is a wonderful breath of fresh air hot off the heels of 13. There wasn't really anything outstanding to point out, it's just a solid game to pass the time, and among my collection, this is probably one of the shortest ones I've played so far. It'll take you maybe 4.5, 5 hours to play through it all. This might sound bad for someone that played the game on release, but, you know, at the time, this is actually a pretty good experience just to play through. And someone who's played this 2 decades after the fact, it's a pretty good game. I recommend it. Aside from the main campaign, this game has other game modes that are practically obsolete today. The multiplayer options looked cool from what I've seen. Without modding, it's impossible to play these game modes. I feel conflicted about that. The advertisements at the time seemed to show that you had the option to pick an ending of being the law or breaking the law. However, this kind of falls flat. Maybe in the online mode you had an option for that, or hell, even a shared campaign with both sides, but it's just not really there. There's a few missions where you play as a corrupt police officer, but you end up breaking the law anyways. It's a much more linear experience. There's so much potential here that I could have feel like it could have been better. I do recommend picking this up, however, from your local like retro game store. Unfortunately, I feel like this game is just good and nothing more than that. I'm gonna give them like a 5.5 out of 10. But the real standout here is the soundtrack. Sorry everyone for the delay in uploads. I've had a pretty busy month with work and all that, but I appreciate everyone that kept me pushing to upload more. This video, much like the game itself, is a bit on the shorter side, so I don't really have much else to add. Thank you for watching, and if you feel like it was worth the time, I appreciate if you liked and subscribed. My next video will most likely be on Advent Rising on the Xbox. However, I've been playing through Hollow Knight recently as well, so I think I might upload a video on that once I beat it. Thank you for watching, and have a good rest of your day.